Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I primarily do book reviews, writing related content, and just nerdy things, so movies and board games. If that interests you, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and to check out my Instagram if you're also interested in those things. Anyway, I think I am finally ready to give a more deep dive, spoiler-filled discussion, more or less, about the Blade itself. So, I love this book. I already have a spoiler-free review up, and it's basically just me going on and on about that. I love this book. So check that video out if you just want my general opinions about it. But I kind of want to get into more of the nitty-gritty and the things that I really liked, a few of the things that I wasn't as into. Let's get started. So I've been trying to figure out how I want to dissect a book like this, and I think it's best just to go from the different point of view characters onward, and then we'll just do our best from there because there's a lot going on and I'm not going to be able to touch all of it. So if there's anything really crucial or really exciting that I missed, throw your comments in down below. This is the spoiler edition, so this is a safe space to discuss all aspects of the first book, but only the first book because I haven't read the other two yet, so don't spoil it for me either. Sandan Glokta. Whew. What a character. He's the only one, when you're kind of in his head internally, he's given a lot of italics, so you always know when you're in his head, and he always has something very funny, darkly funny, very dark, usually very kind of cruel, but it's funny because it's not made explicit right away that this man is only 35 years old. So I think that I'm in the perspective of like a 90-year-old person, and then it's revealed, gosh, I don't know, you gotta be several chapters in before you realize, like, oh no, he's 35. Oh my God, so that broke my heart right away. And you just get the sense too when you're reading him that he feels like an older soul because of but not in a nice way, in a like he's seen too much, he knows the very harsh realities about the world, and now he's just continuing to go forward because what else can he do? He's a heartbreaking character to read because you feel like there's so much potential with him. He's in so much anguish physically and mentally because of his past traumas. I'm very interested to see where he goes because right now he's kind of head to head with the, what is it, the first of the, I don't know how to pronounce it, Manji? He's kind of head to head with Beaz right now, like they're kind of in opposition with each other, but I have a feeling that they might be homies by the end of the trilogy. So the first third of this book, I think, starts out kind of slow. Glokta spends a lot of time, you know, like interviewing the merchants, and it's brutal, but it definitely wasn't the most interesting aspect of the book to me. If the point of that whole thing was to show that the guy that Glokta is working for, kind of the head of the council, is power hungry and willing to lie and break as many laws as he can to get what he wants, then I mean, good. But it was one of those things where it seemed like such a big storyline dealing with the merchants and the trial and all that, and then it just stopped. It just kind of was over, and he kind of talks more about like, oh, there seems to be something going on with the bankers. That whole political scheming, not my favorite part of the book. What kept me going through that was Glokta and how interesting he was as a character and how memorable he is as a character. But when he actually started interacting more with Logan and Giselle and RD, that's when I was like, oh, at my peak. I was like, yes, I wanna read more of that. I love when he interacts with all these other characters. By the end of the book, he's getting out of the city and he's still having to do some like political scheming, but I'm hoping it's maybe a little bit more interesting. There were some aspects of it that were really cool, like he has his two compadres. One's name was Frost, and I can't remember what the other one's name off the top of my head. I kind of wish there was more of him. He was so, like, I don't know, just gave me the creeps, but also seemed very likable. It was so bizarre. But I really liked that decrepit house that they found, and then this like weird basement with the mosaic or the mural on the wall of their gods, and like the scene of, I think, their main god getting killed by his brother and all that. It was just so creepy and weird. And I mean, all the interrogation scenes were creepy and weird. I'm not a baby when it comes to horror, but I mean, reading about someone mutilating someone else in like graphic detail isn't exactly how I want to spend my time either. So I'm glad I didn't really get into that. It just needed to suggest it. It just needed Glokta to suggest that upcoming violence. And I was just like, oh, creeped out of my skull. Oh my God, my dog scared me. Okay, so speaking of Giselle, he's definitely one of my favorite perspectives. And that was also one where like his first introductory chapter was kind of slow and tedious, but the rest of the book is not at all. He's so hilarious. I love him, even though he's an asshole and he's pompous and he's full of himself and he's kind of an idiot. I just loved him because he was so funny. He and Glokta definitely had the most hilarious chapters. And man, and Glokta was more what he said or what he thought was funny, and Giselle was more everything he did was just so hilarious because it was just so stupid or ridiculous. And I loved that he was in love with RD. I mean, y'all know I love me some romance. I love me some forbidden romance. And then we have RD coming in, who is like also one of my favorite characters, and she doesn't even get a POV. I hope she does in future books because I love her. I think she's amazing. I love her so much. I'm going to read you RD's introduction, which is through Giselle's perspective, because I have never loved a character description more in my life, and it tells you so much about both these characters. It's so good. Okay, for some reason he had been expecting a kind of shorter, fatter version of Major West in a dress. He had been greatly mistaken. She was perhaps slightly fuller of a figure than was strictly fashionable, since skinny girls were all the rage, but you couldn't call her fat, not fat at all. She had dark hair, dark skin, a little darker than would generally be thought ideal. He knew that a lady should remain out of the sun whenever possible, but looking at her, he really couldn't remember why. Her eyes were very dark, almost black, and blue eyes were turning the heads this season, but hers shone in the dim light of the doorway in a rather bewitching manner. How great of a description is that? Like, ooh, buddy. Also, Joe Abercrombie, the author, he clearly hates the style of Victorian women, because he goes out of his way to mention 4 or 5 different times throughout this book, through mainly Giselle's perspective and Logan's, where they talk about how like ugly basically these women look, and how like dumb it is that they're so skinny, how dumb their fashion is, how dumb it is that they look so pale, and how sickly they look. It's funny. I feel a little bit attacked, but it's funny. And they also start out with like this fencing practice, which is a little bit, just tedious, I think is the word I'm looking for. But once it actually gets to the competition, hilarious and so much fun. And I loved his final fight with that giant guy who was clearly overpowering him. And then Bayaz comes in and like uses his magic to make sure Giselle wins, and it's such a riot. And then I loved when Giselle first meets Logan too, and like you're in his perspective and he just keeps talking about how ugly Logan is. And then there's one point where Logan's looking at a fountain because he's never seen a fountain before, which fair enough, and he's just like amazed and also confused on why they're wasting so much water, and Giselle's like kicking the ground and he's like, it's through the pipes. It was just so funny. And there's also a part where like he's deeply in love with RD, right? Like he's head over heels for her. And then all his friends are like kind of talking about like wanting to get with her, and they think that she's easy, a little bit of a hoochie or something. And he like loses his shit and flips a table. And he talks to his friend about cutting him up like a fucking chicken. And then he's about to leave and he turns to him and he's like a fucking chicken. And it's so funny. I love Giselle so much. Just because he's hilarious. I don't like him as a person. I wouldn't be with him if I was RD, but like whatever. She can do whatever she wants because she is the best. she is the best female character by far. Because the other female character, whose perspective you do get to be from, but I kind of wish we weren't, was Pharaoh. She's not bad, it's just, and you don't get a lot of perspective chapters from her, and sometimes she's funny. And she does have, I shouldn't say I hate her, I don't hate her at all. She's just, I think, one of the weaker links in the story because she's so one note, which is kind of the point. Because when Beaz is like, I can offer you revenge, she's so one note about wanting revenge and wanting to kill all these people that did her and her family wrong. And that's all it takes for her to come on his side. Like, okay. It's just not the most interesting of read. Her character description sounds cool. Yulwei, her like mangy, I don't know how to pronounce it. I know how it's spelled. Her guy seemed really cool and I liked how different he was from Beaz, but obviously they're magical guys, so they got some cool tricks up their sleeves. They also seem to make a point of the fact that she's colorblind. I don't know why that's important, but it seems to be important, so we'll see. Can you chill? I have a feeling, because what Beaz wants to use her for is left extremely vague. It kind of sounds like he wants her to low-key be like Mary and birth a Jesus figure, so to speak. Maybe I'm crazy, but that's definitely kind of the vibe that I got from the language when he was speaking to Yulwei and stuff. It's like, oh, she's gonna be the carrier for this future child. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm crazy, but there's a very strong, like a nod to Christianity throughout this book. But obviously instead of like Mary is like this very sweet, poor, devoted girl, and Pharaoh is bloodthirsty and insane. So it's not like a one-to-one, but I just wouldn't be surprised if that's the direction this author decides to go in. Okay, let's talk about potentially the star of the show, who I think is on the front cover here, and that is Logan Ninefingers. Ooh, buddy. So I love Logan. I love Logan. I'm kind of gonna throw the Dogman in here too, because the Dogman, that's when you really get to be in the North with the Northerners, and you get a sense of their dynamics. I have a friend who has read the trilogy and says the Dogman is like his favorite character. Based off this first book, I mean, the Dogman is cool and the Northern stuff is cool, but like not a favorite character by any means. But I'm excited if he like steps up to the plate, which my friend insists that he does. So I'm looking forward to that. But Logan Ninefingers is so dope. I love him. Okay, his chapters are also funny. Him, Glocta, Giselle, also hilarious, especially when he gets to the main city and he's just so overwhelmed and he doesn't understand like why things are the way they are, why are they so complicated, why are there so many rules, just doesn't know how to operate in this world. And it was really funny while I was reading it, their storylines and their locations and yeah, just the way they operated were like in different worlds, and I guess I just didn't expect them to merge so quickly, and it was so fun once they did. I was so into that because yeah, you spend the first half with Logan Ninefingers like in the woods, barely surviving, having to use violence to get out of certain situations, and oh, he's just such an interesting character. I like him so much. Obviously the end blew my mind. I just did not expect Nine Fingers, the Bloody Nine, to be like almost like a demon in him. Oh my God, that is so cool. And it also makes sense with the rest of the story, because you get the sense that like Logan thrived in war and in violent situations. But you also get the sense that he's very regretful of a lot of that, or doesn't like a lot of that, or is ashamed of his past. And now, and I just thought it was just like, oh, he's older, he's wiser, he lost his family, so he's just over it. But now it's like, oh, also because there's like a bloodthirsty manic demon inside him. Like, that is just a twist I did not see coming, and it was dope. One of my favorite scenes was when, after Giselle won the competition and they had to eat at the king's palace, he was invited. Oh, just a side note, I love the king just being this fat, docile, nearly brain dead figure is that everyone has to pretend is in charge, is so clever and so funny, and I love it. I loved when he hugged Giselle at one point and it was just so uncomfortable. Oh my God, so good. But they're at the dinner table and Logan is just like, oh, what is happening? Everybody looks stupid and over frilly and looks terrible. I don't understand all these utensils. I don't understand, what can I eat? And he starts eating like a garnish. And so good. I like that he was kind of becoming friends with Major West. Logan I trust, Logan I love, and I was also getting like weirdly offended because a bunch of characters, including Logan himself, kept calling him ugly. And I was just like, listen, he's been through a lot. I love him. I was like, don't you dare. Like, he's perfect the way he is. Stop it. And I love that the Northerners speak differently than everyone else, like with just their little phrases like, oh, he went back to the mud when someone died. Just things like that. It just felt so lived in and so real. I think the conflict up north is also interesting. The fact that he's kind of unifying all these different clans and basically trying to act like a real king and impose taxes on people, which sounds like they've never had to deal with before. And they're going to attack England. The only thing about my copy is that it does not come with a map. I could look one up online, but I'm just so scared of spoilers, guys. So there's definitely this crazy war that seems to be brewing, and I'm interested to see where it goes. Another perspective is Major West. What is his name? Cullum West. I love that first name, Cullum West. Not a particularly interesting character until he was. He was kind of like the Watson to Giselle, in the sense that Giselle is much more vibrant and interesting, and Cullum was just always doing the right thing and always having to be on his best behavior and very responsible and taking care of all these things. And then he beats the shit out of RD, and I was like, sir, you seem stressed. Like, oh my God, I was just not ready for that chapter to happen, and when it did, it was a lot, and it made me really sad because I liked him so much, and here he is beating up his sister, who just kind of takes it and is like, that's fine, father used to do this to us all the time, blah blah blah. I don't know, it was just very heart-wrenching and really sad, and did a lot for both RD and Cullum in that one chapter where you find out about like their father abusing them, and he kind of went on to bigger and better things and left her behind to deal with all of it, and it was a lot. And then when he goes back and rekindles his friendship with Glocktail, that also actually like really warmed my heart. And I was like, oh my God, they're friends again, thank God. And then I also love that Glockta and RD might become BFFs. I'm all about that. I just want RD in this story more. I want her to have her own POV chapter. I want her to be a part of the main gang and interact with everybody. I also ship her and Giselle, but I also weirdly ship her and Logan, even though they've only interacted once together very briefly, but I'm like, yes, that would be great. I love it. There's a lot about this book I love. There's a lot of really intense things, especially when it comes to body mutilations. Not that it shows a lot of it, but just like when Glokta describing the fact that he woke up and shat himself and needs somebody to help clean him off, and how much horrible pain he is. I like the motif of, or not a motif, he just mentions throughout the book how much he hates stairs. And then comes back around when they go into that tower that no one has ever been in, or like there was no key to get into it. And then of course Bayaz gets into it and brings Giselle and Logan and Glokta, and then Glokta's like horrified because they realize that like they've gone up 100 feet, but they've never went up any stairs. Like the way that came back around, and I loved that whole scene. I loved that it was so creepy, supernatural undertone to the book that I am just all about. So I'm really hoping in future books that I get more RD, creeped out, and that it will just, the whole book will feel faster. Because like I said, this first third took me a hot minute to get into, just between the politics and Giselle training there, and then Logan just kind of wandering through the woods. It was just slow. But then halfway point and onwards, it was like, I could not get enough of it. I feel like there's so much more to say about this book, but I'm about tapped out as to what to talk about on my own. So please, if you have any more to say, leave it down in the comments below. I absolutely love this book. I cannot wait to read the rest of the series, and I will certainly make videos on it as well. So if you like it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe so you don't miss out on any book related content in the future, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!